Imagine an economy teetering on the brink of recession, a government in denial, and a recovery that's more mirage than reality. Welcome to the state of the UK economy. Now, you may think this is an exaggeration, but let's take a closer look at the facts. Since the tenure of Liz Truss as Prime Minister, the UK economy has been struggling to keep its head above water. The so-called recovery that was promised to us has turned out to be nothing more than a mirage, a figment of optimistic forecasts and wishful thinking. And what about Rishi Sunak's mix of income tax rises and public sector cuts? They were supposed to balance the books, to bring about stability, but instead they've backfired. The UK is now worse off, with a stagnating economy and a public sector left to pick up the pieces of these ill-advised policies. But it's not just the domestic policies that have led us here. The decision to leave the EU's single market and customs union has left its mark on trade and investment, further exacerbating the economic woes. This isn't your typical recession with dramatic rises in unemployment or company failures. No, this feels more like a prolonged period of stagnation, a slow and painful decline that's much harder to bounce back from. And while all this is going on, the government continues to neglect public services, crucial pillars that not only support the economy but also ensure the well-being of its citizens. From healthcare to education, the impact of these policies is far-reaching and devastating. But perhaps the most telling sign of this economic distress is the state of local councils, some of which are going bankrupt due to rising costs and increased demand for services. It's a stark reminder that the current approach is not working, that relying solely on the private sector to shoulder the burden is not sustainable. Not quite the picture of prosperity, is it? But wait, there's more. Austerity, the word that's become synonymous with economic hardship, has left its mark on the UK in more ways than one. The government's dogged adherence to austerity measures, coupled with the decision to leave the EU's single market and customs union, has resulted in a significant negative impact on trade and investment. The government's approach was a sort of double-edged sword. On one hand, the austerity measures were intended to curb government spending and reduce the national debt. On the other hand, these measures have led to a contraction in the economy, with the private sector unable to fill the gap left by the withdrawal of public sector spending. The decision to leave the EU's single market and customs union was another blow to the economy. The move resulted in increased trade barriers, reducing the ease of doing business with our European neighbours. This has had a knock-on effect on investment, with businesses less willing to invest in the UK due to the increased uncertainty and costs associated with trade. The result of these economic decisions is not a dramatic rise in unemployment or company closures, as one might expect in a traditional recession. Instead, the UK is experiencing a prolonged period of economic stagnation. Growth is sluggish, productivity is low, and wages are stagnating. This stagnation is not just a temporary blip, it's a consequence of long-term economic decisions that have prioritized short-term fiscal goals over long-term economic health. The result is an economy that is struggling to grow, with the burden of austerity measures falling disproportionately on the most vulnerable in society. The cost of austerity is not just economic, it's also social and political. The neglect of public services, the rise in poverty, and the increase in inequality are all costs that society has to bear as a result of austerity measures. In conclusion, austerity is a policy choice, not an economic necessity. It's a choice that has consequences both for the economy and for society. Austerity, it seems, has a price, and it's one that the UK is paying dearly. But it's not just the economy that's feeling the pinch. Public services, the backbone of any society, are in a state of crisis. The issues run deep and wide, from healthcare to housing, education to local governance. The privatisation wave has left the care sector in shambles, with quality and accessibility taking a backseat to profit margins. Our housing crisis is no secret, with affordable homes becoming a distant dream for many. Dentistry, a vital public health service, is in short supply, leaving countless citizens in dental distress. The education sector, the incubator of our future, is bogged down with problems, with the quality of education often compromised. And let's not forget our local councils. Struggling to keep their heads above water, they're grappling with rising costs and a surge in demand for services. Yet, Their financial lifelines are being cut short, pushing them closer to the brink of bankruptcy. The cost of neglecting public services, a society in crisis. So, what's the solution? Some argue it's time for an activist state, one that takes on the heavy lifting in providing public services. Picture a government that doesn't just play the role of a referee, but rather steps into the game itself. This means actively investing in public services and focusing on long-term sustainable growth, rather than chasing the allure of immediate profits. Now, this isn't a new concept. The idea of an activist state has been around for some time, but it's a radical shift from the current model, which leans heavily on the private sector for solutions. This reliance has left us teetering on the brink of recession, with public services stretched thin and local councils going bankrupt. Despite the challenges, the current Tory party seems resistant to this approach. Their focus remains on short-term profits, often at the expense of the long-term health of the economy. This resistance, though, only amplifies the need for change. An activist state could be the cure to Britain's ills, but it's a pill the current government seems unwilling to swallow. So there you have it, the UK's economic woes in a nutshell. From the mirage of recovery to the cost of austerity, the neglected public services, and the potential solution. It's paramount to understand and stay informed about these issues. Remember, knowledge is power. So subscribe for more insightful content and join us as we untangle the world of economics. Until next time, stay informed and stay engaged.